I must admit, walking into my researchers hitting the hard liquor is an experience. Admiral Cistern notes as he sees the joint task force of the nerds and his research and development staff apparently doing everything in their power to pass out drunk. They just came off shift, sir. The rest of us are stone sober, Sergeant Jonathan Ames says with a haunted look on his face. The normally light-hearted and playful member of the nerd squad looked like he was fresh off a battlefield and could still hear the artillery ringing in his ears. How bad is it? Admiral Cistern asks, and the man outright flinches. That's bad. Worse, sir. You remember all the betting pools with the pessimist bets? The people that thought we were walking into some kind of harvesting bio-organic horror show and would be spending the rest of eternity screaming in our heads as our bodies were ravaged? The Warhammer fans, if I recall. I've rarely seen people so happy to be proven wrong. They weren't entirely wrong, Jonathan says before holding out a data slate to Admiral Cistern. He activates it and has to steel himself to not let out a sound of disgust at the sight of the clammy-skinned, scab-ridden, and potch-marked abomination hovering above the projector. The creatures that the Chainbreaker are facing they'd fit right the hell into that hellhole setting. I want a summarization, and then specifics, Admiral Cistern says, and Jonathan nods. Of course, this way, sir, he says, and he leads Admiral Cistern past the drinking scientists and nerds. You can continue that in the mess hall where other soldiers can then help you to your bunks. He tells them all, and the inebriated men start moving towards the door. Sir, I need you to sit down first. What I'm about to tell you is highly disturbing, Jonathan says, and Admiral Cistern raises an eyebrow but takes the offered seat. Jonathan sits opposite of him and takes a breath. When we got the chemical and DNA readout from the sample the Chainbreaker boys retrieved, we were elated at first. It was good news, great news, a perfect way to figure out what they are. Now, I'd rather I didn't know. There isn't a single one of us that is happy knowing what these things are. I don't want to directly order you to tell me, Sergeant, but I will if you keep stalling. In summation, these creatures, which we're calling pale generators, are mutilated, kit-bashed, abused clone monsters that maintain a massive field of control. Non-sentient, non-sapient, and easily and directly controlled by the person they're based off of. These things are easily cloned from even a livestock reproduction facility and are outright trivial to program. I could make one in a week. Jonathan's look is horrified and he takes a deep breath. The fact I know that is, anyways, to continue, you basically take your own DNA, shake it up like an insane jar and start outright violating the developing fetus while it grows. End result, a hideous mutated thing that can only barely look after itself and slavishly follow your orders while using Axiom. Dear God. It's a little more complicated than just screwing with the sample tube though, but not by much. It's in theory possible to make something like this by accident if you don't simply scrap the cloning attempt and try again when it's clearly going very, very wrong. And instead deliberately make it worse, Admiral Cistern says lowly. He examines the bulbous thing again. The mismatched limbs, the distinctly diseased look. It's effectively an aborted child that did not die. Yes, Jonathan says. There is good news, though. I fail to see how. The plan on the Chainbreaker to use gas weapons, it will work very well. These things are borderline blind, have little sense of smell, and the only reason they aren't eaten alive by scavengers is because of the field around them. Take out the Axiom risk and they're just waiting to die. A small dosage of chlorine or mustard gas in their lair, guaranteed kill, which leads us to the next problem. Just give me the full formal report. I'm sure you've gotten everything in it. Yes, sir, Jonathan says. This way, please. The small room that Admiral Cistern is led to has a projector of the creature in question in all of its nauseating glory. As well as a steaming pot of coffee, 2 mugs and a note from Sir Philip apologizing for not being there in person, but a great many affairs of the estate require attending to, and to take this coffee along with his apologies for such mismanagement of his personal schedule. "All right then, sir, may I begin?" Jonathan asks. Admiral Cistern nods even as he pours them each a coffee. "Thank you, sir. Begin." Entity Designation ABC0001, Artificial Biological Construction Number 1, the Pale Generators, threat level medium to high. Incapable of higher thought or the usage of technology. Use of such creatures for the undaunted is highly ill-advised. Current action designation is destroy on sight. Jonathan begins before taking a sip to steady himself. Physical description. A pale generator is an elongated being with pale skin, a hairless, scaleless, furless body 10 meters long. Its skin is extremely thin to the point of near transparency, and its mismatched and misplaced limbs around its bulbous torso allow for ungainly but oddly swift locomotion. Most striking of all is the extremely long neck of equal length to the body, an oversized head with non-functional black eyes, no nose, and no lips to hide its large teeth. All specimens so far encountered have sharpened teeth suggesting carnivorous diets, but are suspected omnivores. These specimens have been discovered in 2 separate states of well-fed and starving. A starving specimen is very thin and compact, no more than 3 meters across at its widest point. Well-fed specimens have proven to have a truly elastic digestive tract and are capable of engorging up to 8 meters across, although wider specimens are suspected to exist. "Continue," Admiral Cistern prompts him before taking a sip of his own coffee. "The behavior and threat of a pale generator is entirely dependent on how it is being used. As a fully unnatural creature, it must be deliberately cultivated, and its effectiveness is therefore entirely on the creator," Jonathan says before taking a sip. These creatures are capable of inducing wide-range and complicated axiom effects over an extremely long period of time, effectively acting as living axiom totems that self-maintain and defend themselves as well. We have determined that each effect must be imprinted into the pale generator individually. They then obsessively use these effects constantly, or if additional commands are given, then they activate these effects whenever the triggering commands are satisfied. Jonathan takes another sip as he shifts the image to the scans of the layers that had been discovered. Known patterns of a pale generator include scavenger-like behavior and a focus on carrion for sustenance, and an extremely active defense of its home territory. These creatures' senses are very poor even with Axiom, and therefore, like many animals with poor senses, they compensate with sheer aggression. Pale generators have a layering instinct and will find a dark, defensible location to spend the majority of their time within. However, if they sense something is amiss, they will also go to investigate. This is believed to be a holdover of the damaged entity used to create it. It is suspected, but not yet proven, that a pale generator can be used for any variety of axiom effects. However, until a second instance of ABC0001 being produced by a different source is discovered, this is merely conjecture. The current known capabilities include a wide-range observation and retaliation field. These fields safely overlap and spread over extremely wide areas. Currently, it is primarily activated by any utterance of the name Vasuda's Mert in any capacity, or if it's written down in galactic trade. If a subject is killed by the retaliation, the area then becomes a target of obsessive focus by the pale generator, and entering within an appreciable radius of the corpse will cause a slow buildup of electrical energy before culminating in a dangerous blast. It is unknown if this is a deliberate feature programmed by Vasuda's Mert or a happy accident for spreading terror. It is currently unknown if Vasudasmrt is the proper name of the individual responsible the creation of the Pale generators, or a pseudonym or some other form of phrasing. Admiral Cistern's gaze is now intense. The sheer complexity of the fields a Pale generator is capable of producing has proven to be staggering. The wide-range, powerful effects and constant maintenance grants this creature at the least a medium threat level. While it is likely easily killed, it still provides an enormous amount of danger for any team in the field. So far, multiple effects have been observed. Effect 1. A wide-range reprisal field that discharges deadly amounts of electrical energy upon the saying or writing of specific key phrases, the suspected name of the creator among them. 2. A planet-covering containment field that sabotages and detonates the power core of interstellar spaceships that spend too much time in orbit. This prevents escape and reinforcement of the locals. 3. A mind-altering effect forcing individuals to lose focus on any area a Pale generator is within. This field has an alternate and much more dangerous effect on humans, inducing cerebral hemorrhaging and possibly stroke in large doses. 4th, an extremely violent reprisal effect to any detected threat within the immediate territory of a Pale generator. This second defensive measure ensures the generator is undisturbed while maintaining the fields. Quite comprehensive. Admiral Cistern compliments the man, and Jonathan smiles with a nod. Thank you, sir. There is more. The creation? Yes. Once we deciphered the Axiom patterns across the creature and were scanned a DNA sample from them, we were able to quickly put together the creation methodology. Effectively, when the cloning process is tainted, interrupted, or distorted in some manner, very similar mutations and damages to the potential clone occur. By following this trail of logic and discovery, we have deduced that this creature is in fact a clone of the controller. This is especially useful as there seems to be a specific gap within the damaging fields for others of their own kind, a weakness based in the DNA patterns, one that the maker of these beings would casually dance within, which brings us quite nicely to the weaknesses of these creatures and methods of disposal. Your favorite part, no doubt. Everyone's favorite part, sir. I used to call people who really annoyed me walking abortions. The fact that we've encountered such a thing. Jonathan trails off before throwing back his coffee and putting down the mug. These creatures are very physically frail, and their dull senses forces them to be extremely reliant on Axiom. Couple this with their extremely low levels of intelligence, and we have a fairly easy target once you get past the initial Axiom effects. Any attack to the exposed head or neck will result in a fairly quick and clean kill. Gas weapons delivered by non-Axiom using drones are the method of disposal soon to be used on all currently known specimens, and will also be the standard method of disposal from this day forward. The use of the drone and the chemical reduces risk of retaliation and of the target surviving. Attacks against the main body itself are also likely successful, but ill-advised due to the threat of the Pale generator being Axiom-based. The faster it dies, the better. However, if you must attack the body, laying razor wire or mines across its common paths is recommended, although be prepared for the fallout. Very good. Anything else? Here's one of the best things about these monsters, sir. There is no way to make them without incriminating yourself. Jonathan causes the image to shift to a DNA readout as he smiles. These creatures and their nature as abused clones all bear the same genetic code as their creator. And despite the mutilation and mutation of the DNA, we have in fact determined that the first variants of Pale generators are in fact of reptilian origin, grossly thinning the number of potential creators. We currently suspect a Kobe. We have already created designs for a modified DNA scanner that will use whatever intact portions of the Pale Generator DNA to track down and aid in the apprehension of the creator, and the use of these devices is recommended in the future when it comes to safe disposal. I see. I take it that attempting to create a specialized poison is a waste of time. Yes, sir. These creatures share the galactic standard vulnerability to toxins. Even a very low dosage of any form of chemical weapon will be quickly lethal. Riot-controlled tear gas could kill them. An improperly made smoke bomb could prove slowly lethal. These creatures are as vulnerable as they are dangerous, which is why their threat categorization is only medium to high and not high. If they were more intelligent, mobile, or resilient, they would have a high or even very high threat level. And what is the chance of success for our boys on the Chainbreaker? Admiral Cistern asks. Very high, sir. The only sticking point is if the woman responsible is good at hiding, or found a way to really screw her DNA, we might be barking up the wrong tree. Still, disposing of the Pale Generators will be simple enough with their air-delivered chemical weapon plan. It's what happens after that's the issue. A being willing to create monsters such as this will not take their destruction well or easily. And there's no telling what other abominations she might have cooked up in the meantime. Exactly.